Hey there, I'm Sarah McLaughlin. Thanks for joining me on the Chaos to Calm podcast, a podcast designed for women over 40 who think that changing hormones might be messing with their mood, metabolism, and energy, and want to change that in a healthy, sustainable, and permanent way. Each episode will explore topics related to health and wellness for women in their 40s, like what the heck is happening to your hormones, what to do about it with nutrition, lifestyle, and stress management, and inspiring conversations with guests sharing their insights and tips on how to live your best life in your 40s and beyond. So, if you're feeling like you're in the midst of a hormonal storm and don't want perimenopause to be horrific, then join me on Chaos to Calm as I share with you how to make it to menopause without it wrecking your relationships and life. Hey there, and welcome back to Chaos to Calm podcast, episode number 36. You're with me, Sarah, the Perimenopause Naturopath. I feel like I'm your guide from the chaos of perimenopause hormone changes to the calm of knowledge and understanding and a supported, nourished body, which is really key to thriving in perimenopause. But today we're diving into the whirlpool, that murky stick of stress and perimenopause. Yeah, have you ever felt like your body and your emotions are just on a never-ending roller coaster ride up and down? Well, I can tell you that you're certainly not alone. But let's today talk about and unravel the ties between stress, your hormones in perimenopause, and how to navigate these choppy waters. So, and why it feels like in perimenopause that stress is so much harder to deal with there as well. Now, I'm going to start talking about and thinking about my lowest point, like physically, mentally, emotionally. My days look something like this. The alarm went off at 7. Like, there was no way to wake up on my own. I felt like I'd been hit on the head, brain fog, puffy eyes, sore joints, headache, exhausted. Like, I actually wondered sometimes, have I even slept? I feel worse than what I did when I went to bed. I dozed until the kids wouldn't let me anymore. And I still felt the same, maybe even a bit worse. And from what I understand about sleep these days, I know that that was actually making me feel worse. Anyway, I dragged myself out of the bed, snap at the kids, made coffee, drink at least 2 cups of that on an empty stomach. I had no appetite. No surprise, because I'd drunk so much coffee. I wouldn't have breakfast, but I would madly corral everyone to go to school. So this was before we homeschooled. We were always late. I would be so angry about why we were late again, and I would berate them in the car or just command silence because my brain was already overloaded. Once 3 of those 4 children were dispensed to school, I'd go home and have a sit down and have another coffee while I tried to summon the motivation to get on with my chores. I'd finally eat brunch, and it would be something high in carbs like toast with peanut butter. I really needed it to be easy, simple, fast by then because my head was really woozy from all that coffee and those food. Then I'd feel so exhausted after eating. When my youngest would nap, I'd lie down with her too. After that, we'd get up and might have something else to eat. I'd try to be good and make a green smoothie, maybe try to think about dinner and get it started because I know I just wouldn't be up for it later on. The kids would all be grouchy, no one talk to each other really. We'd get home from school, they'd watch their iPads or TV, so I could flop about trying to muster my motivation and energy to get some stuff done. But the kids were reluctant to ask me for anything because the others were always so grouchy. I was so snacky. And, at PM, I'd be like, oh, I'm so exhausted. And I have to, oh, look, it's 8 p.m. And then I sort of went doing all the things while the kids are trying to get ready for bed and also feeling frustrated by them because I can't do the stuff that I needed to do during the day and didn't do. 10 o'clock, still up, she'd go to bed, but super awake. Now, chatting and chipper with my husband, he's like, what the heck? He's a tradie. He's always came for an early night because he starts early. So he would go to bed. Obviously, that's what I should do, but I did. And then I would just lie there and lie there and lie there. All those coffees, cortisol, it's all catching up with me. You might feel it too. You feel so wired. You're exhausted and tired, but you're really tired. Go to bed. I'd finally fall asleep around midnight, but I would wake up all the time, especially around 2 a.m. and I'd be awake for a couple of hours there as well. So I wonder, can you relate to those days feeling just super snappy, burnt out, exhausted, but then, yeah, can't sleep at night? So it's a really common experience and one that you might find worsening in perimenopause, or maybe by the end of this podcast episode, you might be starting to think that your stress response and your stress level is actually making it feel like you're in perimenopause and maybe you're not quite there yet. So let's dive in there and look at the science behind our stress response and why life feels more stressful during perimenopause there. When I ask what your symptoms of stress are, what do you think? Stress is something I talk about a lot. I think I've mentioned it almost every episode of Chaos to Calm podcast. But it's a really vague concept and word. What does it really mean? What does it mean for our bodies? And how do you know what the symptoms of stress might be? So a stressor is anything that your senses tell your brain is a danger to your health or your happiness. So your brain and body are quite focused on these two things. And they're actually really most focused, our primal brains, on three things. That is keeping us safe and keeping us happy and using the least amount of resources as they can to do those things. So your body's really focused on keeping you safe and avoiding stress or stressors there as well. So stress is used to describe the way our body adapts and responds to stressors and how you feel during this process. So when there's a perceived stress, a cascade of chemical messages, neurotransmitters that set emotion from your brain as your body prepares you to move into that sympathetic dominant nervous system mode, fight, flight, or flee. Most notable here is an increase in cortisol and adrenaline. They're literally going to keep you upright and keep you running away from that saber-toothed tiger. That actually went, obviously that's not the stressor for us these days, but that our brains are still quite primal. So cortisol and adrenaline will really quickly alter what's going on in your body. And they'll raise your heart rate, your breathing rate, your blood pressure, your blood glucose levels. They are priming your body to be ready to run away from whatever the stress or the perceived danger is. So that part of our brain perceives that there is a danger, sends out those chemical messages and gets us ready to do something about it. So obviously while we're doing that, we don't have time for digestion, reproduction, or to get fit. So those things are suppressed or reduced. Our body is just not focused on those things. Now, stress happens to us all day, every day in our modern world because, but our brains are designed for stressors to come and go reasonably quickly. So it used to be the stressor was something like a wild animal chasing you. But these days, most of us, especially mums, have lots of little stressors right through the day, like 24/7, which all adds up to really chronic or long-term stress and chronic activation of our stress response. But as humans, we haven't really evolved to deal with this. So we're still responding to stressors as if it's something really dangerous to our life and that they're few and far between. So these days, though, it means that we're spending more time in fight or flight mode and less in rest and digest mode. So your body does try to adapt to the stressors and the level of daily stress. It really does. And our bodies are amazing. But for most people, the level of stress and the never-ending stream of it makes it almost impossible for the body to adapt and cope to these stress levels. And eventually, when this stress continues, there's exhaustion. And modern stress is super intense. And modern diets are not particularly supportive or nourishing in these times of high demand. So, thinking about stressors, where I'm not just talking about the physical stress of driving in peak hour traffic or maybe getting cut off and thinking, oh, I'm going to crash. It's finances, budgets, interest rates, your mortgage. It's all the different tasks that coming in and juggling a to-do task. It's working and mothering and managing a household. And it's, walking on eggshells around a teenager or arguing with your partner or messages constantly coming in on a phone. It's physical stressors. We have a lot more Wi-Fi and EMF around us than ever before. And, we're still working out what all of those things do to us. But stress is a lot and around us all the time. So Our human bodies are amazing. They do all that they need to, every day for us. There's a really intricate dance between all the organs, the tissue, the cells to manage our daily energy, nutrient, and hormone needs. Our bodies make strawberries out of food most days. Absolutely. So let's talk about what spending all this time in fight or flight mode means for your body. But I do want you to understand the phases of the stress response before we move into that. So you really need to understand what that stress response or that cascade is in your body. So it is controlled in your brain in the hypothalamus. And when the amygdala, that fear center or danger center of your brain, senses a threat or danger, it triggers the hypothalamus to secrete hormones and neurochemicals messengers. For this in turn triggers the pituitary gland to release more chemical messengers to stimulate your adrenal glands that sit above your kidneys to make cortisol. This is called the HPA axis. And you need to remember that little hypothalamus and pituitary for later. The initial phase of the stress response is alarm. So the HPA axis is ramped up to help support the body to respond to the stressor. You might be really energized, you're wired, you're ready to go, you're ready to fight or run away. The second phase is called adaptation, and that's where stress has continued for a longer time. It's chronic. Some people feel tired, agitated, irritated, and really craving stimulants in this phase. So coffee, caffeine, alcohol, sugar, your phone, all those dopamine hits because your body's trying to make you happy. So the HPA axis in adaptation is under pressure to regulate and maintain the stress response. And we aren't actually designed to sit in that phase for a long period of time. So when you keep pushing and the stress continues, the final phase of the stress response is exhaustion. And I bet there's lots of you there right now. At this point, you're going to feel really extreme fatigue. Your HPA axis is actually downregulated, and so your cortisol levels drop because it can't just keep doing it for you at this time, and that's can make you feel really, really lethargic and down. So you might be thinking, well, how long are these phases? Well, it's a really good question, but it just depends on you, your body, your genes, and your personal capacity, your resources to cope, and your stressor. So what are the symptoms of stress? You might be confused about, well, how do I even know if it's stress impacting me? So, just like stress is a really vague term, the symptoms of stress can be really vague or a lot of them that we might attribute to stress. So it's important to remember that the hypothalamus and pituitary that regulate your stress response in the brain also look after your kidney, your ovaries, and your thyroid. And so I hope you can see where I'm going with this, because things like unexplained weight gain, especially around the belly and the middle, fatigue, changes in your blood pressure, maybe a sudden onset of period pain or intense PMS, short or longer or heavier cycles. Maybe your thyroid is starting to look a bit different on your blood test. So maybe it's slowing down. Maybe you've got more hair falling out. Skin might be feeling dry. Your mood might be changing, feeling slow, lethargic, depressed. So when the HPA axis is dysregulated, there's also going to be dysregulation in those other organs that it looks after. Your brain is brilliant. It really is. But it just isn't ready for life as we live now. Technology moves quickly. I mean, we only need to look back at use in our childhood. Most of us can probably remember when the internet came in, when computers became a thing, when we moved from cassettes to CDs, and now we stream music. So, our lives move quickly, so does technology. But our human body evolves relatively slowly. And, it's still trying to get used to things that were introduced to us in the 70s and 80s, like margarine, emulsifiers, additives, preservatives, and other delights. Industrialization. So, it's a lot for our bodies to adapt. Our bodies can be slow to adapt, but modern life moves very quickly. So there's plenty of symptoms of stress that also come from cortisol, from high or low cortisol as well, rather than the upregulation or the increased activity in the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, which increases the stimulation to your ovaries and kidneys and thyroid, as I've said. Some of the general effects of cortisol include changes to your neurotransmitter levels, especially serotonin, dopamine, your happiness molecules, And that it can increase anxiety, panic attacks, change your mood, make your mood lower. And remember that I've said your brain is always just wanting to keep you safe and happy. So changes in your neurotransmitter levels can lead to more cravings to things and addiction, obsessive compulsive disorders as well. So alcohol, caffeine, sugar, digital technologies, scrolling to get those dopamine hits is a very real side effect and consequence of too much stress and high cortisol levels. Now, also chronic long-term increases in cortisol can change your brain and change the size of things called dendrites and neurons in your brain, which do the transmitting of information and form part of your memory, cognitive function, your mood. They can accelerate aging as well. And because there is more metabolic waste, because cortisol increases catabolism, it increases your muscle metabolism or breakdown as well to draw resources from it there as well. It's very demanding in nutrients and energy, the stress response. So because there is more metabolic waste that comes as a side product of that, there's more inflammation, your blood glucose levels are higher, the body becomes more acidic, and minerals like calcium are drawn from your bones to help keep your blood pH balanced. So this means that bone mass is reduced and there's an even higher risk for osteoporosis than what there normally is in women going through from perimenopause to menopause. So this is serious stuff. Like, we really need to do something about it because it has long-term consequences for our health and our well-being. I mentioned that there's reduced digestive function in chronic stress, and I have a couple of blogs about that as well. So if you want to go check out Stress and Gut Health and my tips to support digestion during stress. I also mentioned that your immune function can be altered. Cortisol suppresses your immune system because, hey, you don't have time to get sick when you're busy battling those bees. But if that goes on for a while, then actually it loses that impact and the immune system kind of strikes back. It pops back up and out, and it is quite misguided. So you might find new allergies and autoimmune diseases developing. They're really the hallmarks of an immune system that's been suppressed too long and has gone a bit wacky. So again, you can read more about my personal experience with stress, allergies, and autoimmune disease in my blog, Autoimmune Disease and Stress. And it's a really common tale. A lot of women, might not realize they're in perimenopause or might not realize the impact that stress and perimenopause is having on them and develop a lot of new allergies or autoimmune disease. Now, for perimenopausal or menopausal women, when the adrenal glands are flat out making cortisol and adrenaline for you, they're less able to make estrogen. And we need them to do that as our ovaries slow their production. They make a little, just enough to keep ourselves happy because our cells in our brain are really addicted to estrogen and really rely on it to function. And that's part of the reason that we get lots of symptoms as we move towards menopause, because our cells are really struggling to adapt to the changing hormone levels. And that's, like my job, what I help my clients do is help their bodies, and we support and nourish their body so that they can better adjust and get used to that lower estrogen state. Yeah, so with lower estrogen, you're less likely to ovulate and make progesterone, which is your inbuilt stress relief hormone. So you're more likely to feel the side effects of menopause with hot flushes, sweats, insomnia, weight gain, all of that sort of thing from the lowered estrogen states, but you're also less likely to be able to cope with the stressors in your life because you are in a lower progesterone state. And if you want to know more about estrogen or progesterone, go right back to the start of the podcast, and I've got an episode on each of those hormones individually. So are you thinking like, well, does stress make perimenopause worse, or does perimenopause make stress worse? Well, a bit of both. So basically, if you're experiencing all the classic symptoms of menopause, but you're still having a semi-regular cycle, your symptoms are likely due to your body being more sensitive to stress. And this is what perimenopause can do, make you more sensitive to stress. But also that high cortisol and adrenaline can change your hormone fluctuations there as well and make more symptoms of perimenopause for you there as well. So, what comes first, chicken or the eggs? Your body's got that new management in place and things are going to be different in there as well. So I guess my message for you here is that if you've been bearing the mental load for your family, you're carrying your team at work, you're trying to manage everything from grocery shopping to getting the oranges cut for your Saturday sports, this is going to get too much. It's going to be too much for you. And this is something, it's going to impact your hormones, all that stress, that cortisol, adrenaline. It's going to increase the fluctuations that are naturally happening as part of perimenopause. It's going to impact your period and how you feel and your symptoms, even if you may not be in perimenopause. You're in your late 30s, early 40s. Maybe you're in very early perimenopause. Maybe you're not quite there yet, but you might feel confused because your cycle's changing. Maybe it's getting longer or scantier or starting to disappear, maybe skipping some periods here and there because of the stress levels in your life. So now what? I know you want to do something about it, of course. So you understand the symptoms of stress. You understand a bit about what's going on or why life feels more stressful now. What are you going to do about it? I want you to have a think about what symptoms of stress you have and when they started. That's a good place to start. Have you got recent blood tests? Can you compare them to older ones? This will help you get an idea of what's changing in your body, some early warning signs. They're naturopaths, like me. We've trained in reading and analyzing your blood tests from a functional perspective. So really using the different markers that we have to see the patterns in your body and what's changing there as well. So we can look at your basic biochemistry and see how well your systems and organs in your body are coping. And then, rather than having to wait until your results are out of that very wide normal range that pathology guides use, I use a narrow range that's based around your optimal health and body function. And this gives us the opportunity for preventative care. It also gives us the opportunity to see when things are getting out of range before we have to wait till you're really unwell and feeling really crappy. So I've got the blood test decoder as a freebie on my website. Go download it. Have a look with your blood test results and see what messages your body is already giving you there. The other thing I want you to do is support and nourish your body during this time of stress there. So, the most obvious thing that we can do, the biggest thing that's impacting our bodies is our lifestyle and adjusting that. And I know it also feels like the hardest thing too, but you really got to do it. Okay? For your happiness and your health, but also your family as well. So I've got lots of blogs about avoiding stress and with tips in there as well. But one of my favorites is actually saying no. So practice, I get my clients to practice and rehearse phrases in their head if they need to, so they can say no confidently and without guilt. And thinking about their boundaries. What is it that they can do? Like realistically, what can you do and what do you need to get rid of or delegate or move out of your life in some way? So I wonder if in the next 2 weeks you can say no to tasks or activities or outings that you don't really want to do because they're going to make more work or stress for you. And let me know how you go. I really want to know that. Yeah. And like I said, one of the things that I do with my clients is really help them understand the messages from their body, what it's telling them, what it's saying, and what it needs, and helping them provide that. Because that's what it's all about, is helping your body adjust to those changing hormone levels. We can't change the fluctuations, or we can't change that we're going to get to menopause, because we are. But we can help our body adjust as it goes, so we get less of those symptoms and we just feel, better and great again there as well. So I hope you understand now the link between stress and perimenopause and vice versa, and what underlies that in terms of your biochemistry, like what's going on and why it can feel like you can't cope with stress as much. I've given you that challenge there. So do make sure that you let me know how you go with saying no. I'd love to hear about it there. And don't forget the free resources and the links in my blogs. I will put those in the show notes. I do hope that you'll join me again next time. We will be talking about perimenopause and sleep. Massive. I'm not sure how I'm going to cover that all in one podcast episode. It just be that I have to do a couple there as well. For now, though, I really appreciate you tuning in and listening with me on Chaos to Calm podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. I do believe that there. And I hope that you can remember you're not alone on this journey. And until next time, please keep seeking balance and calm amidst the chaos. It's really common for women over 40 to experience the chaos of changing hormones, mood, metabolism, and energy. But I hope you know now that common doesn't have to equal normal for you or them. You can help others understand they aren't alone in feeling this way and that perimenopause doesn't have to be horrific by subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing this podcast with other women in their 40s and beyond. Thanks so much for listening and sharing your time with me today in this chaos to calm conversation.